slide. Oh.
So on the pillars, we've got this Wheel of Fortune, as we said, that we can see overlaid with a red shape. Unfortunately, I've not put a better picture on here, but you can go back 3 episodes and look at those. Basically, there was a big Wheel of Fortune, as it's known, and on this wheel are several spokes. On the inside, there's 7 spokes. On the outside, there are 14 spokes. Now, when you divide up 7 spokes and do all the geometry there, you end up with the pyramid, as you can see on the top right-hand side. What I've done there is taken, it's called a heptagram. I'll call it a septagram also.
Yeah.
And if you do, as you would with a pentagram, kind of collapse all the lines in and join them up, join up all the points, you get 2 different kinds of heptagram. You get an obtuse, a thin one and a fat one, basically. And when you stick them together, you get the pyramid. Not only, as we'll see, do you get the pyramid, you get all the measurements of all the lines of all the angles inside there, bar 2. So, as you can imagine, a 14-sided shape is essentially the same as a 7-sided shape. It's just doubled. Yeah?
Mm.
So we can see, if we look at the very center image on the bottom row, we can see this angle that's been made by this septagram shape. And when you make it into 14 instead of 7, you're doubling it up. You get literally all the angles of all the shafts and everything in the pyramid. It's hard to see because it lines up so well. But apart from the 2 shafts towards the top of the pyramid, one points at Sirius, the other one points at Orion.
Orion, yeah.
Those are 2 specific places. So they're at the specific angles for those stars. Everything else in there is absolutely in accordance with this pattern, and we'll see further later on. Now, I discovered this pattern quite a year before I even discovered these pillars, and it was much to my glee that this pattern was in the pillars, because I'd already realized that this pattern was my personal big discovery. We can see again that same shape is on the pillars, because the first pillar we looked at with all the gobbledygook on it actually has the shape on there is exactly the same shape as the pyramids on these pillars in Bolton. So as we move on, unless you've got anything to say about that.
It's a lot.
There's a lot to take in, isn't there?
Why do you think the Sirius and the Orion shaft, what would be an explanation for them not matching up?
Well, just the fact that it's going to specific points that aren't necessarily anything to do with it. I'm not convinced about the Sirius Orion thing personally.
No.
I've not looked into it mega, but I had questions. But you know, Sirius is the female, Orion's the Sirius is Isis, and Orion is Osiris, as we've proved previously in this series. Mm. But again, it's this 7-sided shape, and that's because the angles of the pyramid are 54 and a bit degrees, and then you have it, and then it's the same as the pole star.
Now then, Ryan.
Now then.
The orientation of those 2 shafts will be contingent on where the pyramid was built and when the pyramid was built.
Yes.
And if you move forward or back in time, millennia, those shafts would have to be in different places. Mm-hmm. They're variables.
Yes.
Whereas the other lines are constants.
So what are you suggesting by that?
That's why those 2 lines don't match up. They're variables.
So that you can, well, they are literally that. Are you saying it's calendrical? That so they could note the building time? Because if that's the case, it's like 10,000. It's at the end of the Younger Dryas, basically. At the end of the Ice Age.
They would line up, though, at some point.
Well, that's then. 10,500 years ago.
Yeah.
12,000 and a bit years ago. At the end of the Ice Age.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know. But we're assuming that those shafts are for that purpose.
Yes.
For Orion and Isis.
Let's do that. Let's say, as far as we know, that's what they're for.
So that means that they have to be calibrated for a point in time, whereas the other lines are fixed.
Yes.
So that's the variable thing.
Yeah. And so you'd assume that in the mistakes is something appropriate and accurate.
A delay in the project.
Well, maybe there was something there. I could quite believe that it was built at the time of Khufu or whatever they say, Khafre, because they've found evidence in there that the block's been used with bits of graffiti. It's like that. I would give it. It's very shaky. I wouldn't even give it a percentage. It's very shaky. I could believe either way. Now, what I almost certainly believe is that it doesn't matter when that pyramid was there. There was something there before it. The Sphinx, I would almost certainly say, is there from 10,500, whatever, because that does mark out that time period. This 10,000,
the age of Leo.
Yeah, the age of Leo, which
in the
brings
processional cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because everything, as we've seen from our pillars onwards, everything starts with Leo, the lion, the bull, the lion, the eagle, and the man. But the Leo is 10,000. The age of Leo is literally 10,500 BC at the time of the end of the Younger Dryas. So it is the gateway, as you always see lions on gateways and at the front of bridges and on thrones and all these other places. You often see a lion holding a ball under its paw.
Right,
in China, etc. And when you look at the ball, it's all this geometry again. So it's just doing this stuff.
Ace. Right, let's go.
Right, so these are all the pillars, and it might be difficult to suss, but everything. Let's take, for example, the front of the horse's head in the top left corner. There's a line that goes up his head. The problem is with this stuff is it matches so well, it's difficult to see sometimes. But as an artist, you can see where all the breaks are. If we take the lion in the center bottom image, you can see. There's a line underneath his bottom exactly. There's just everything is done in accordance. If you look an image above the line of Jesus's staff that he's holding, there's a line that goes straight down there. Basically, all of these images are drawn to a 7-sided shape, stroke 14-sided because it gets doubled, and there's some maths behind this, basically.
So, I mean, the first thing I think, looking at these, is that you need a reference point to put your pattern over. So, for example, the Sphinxy guy at the bottom, his flat.
Yeah, his flat bottom.
I would use that as a reference point, and then Jesus' staff, a straight line.
Yeah,
that's telling me this is your reference point.
Yeah,
the horse in the top left, I don't know where why you've decided to orientate that pattern over that way.
Well, like you can see. Look at the back of his mane. That exactly follows the line that goes. There's a line up the back of his mane. Yeah. The line of it where his ears are. There's a line that separates his bottom ear, and then the termination of that ear.
I'm just like, it's hard for me to visualize because you can blow this image up or shrink it down.
Well,
and you can rotate 360 degrees. It's like, to me, you need a reference point to anchor your image to.
Well, what's beautiful about this is. Okay, we'll get to it later on, but it's fractal, so it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter if I made this half the size because it's all these harmonic numbers are in that pattern, right? So it doesn't matter what I do with it; it's going to be the same. I'm getting the same outcomes because it's all these harmonic numbers.
Right. Okay, that's fine.
Because the main that triangle there, the main triangle that we saw the pyramid in before, you can see in the top right. Is the limits of that triangle in that pillar.
Right.
Yeah. That is a 3-4-5 triangle. Or near as damn it. There's always a little margin in these things. It's near as damn it a 3-4-5 triangle and that angle and all these other things. Well, if you look at that top right image with the shield and the cross, you can see that the sides of the shield are drawn in, the bottom of the shield's exactly, the top of the shield's got a line on it. It's all hemmed in. Yeah. As an artist myself, when you're drawing more complex things and you want to start off and you're like, I want this to look really cool, you will start off with simple shapes. And we know these guys were stonemasons. So we can see in the bottom left image the place where it's actually really encapsulated, and it's that 7-spoke wheel with the 14 around the outside. What's just out of curiosity, have you got your calculator with you still?
Yeah.
Were you getting it out on purpose then? Did you know what I was going to ask for?
No.
What's 360 times 14? Just to find out. Oh, can you do it in your head?
Yeah, 50-40.
50-40. That one Sumerian number, that one that they were all getting at. So, any questions about this? I realise for anybody watching, it's kind of difficult because we're it's complex geometry and there's so many lines on there. And like I said, some of it fits so well that it's difficult to see it because he's literally going over the thing that is already delineated.
Yeah. And they're quite, they'll be quite small on the screen.
Yes, my fault.
Well, that's what it is. But no, I like it. I like it.
So, next image, please.